Subscribe to the Mystic Vibrations Shock of the Hour program today and never miss another episode. The Shock of the Hour is a Radio Anu exclusive program produced every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. By now, I am sure that you are aware that all our programs are packed with information, inspiration, mystic vibrations, as well as hot button topics. Every evening we enter into a different dimension, even if it is a part 2 of the previous program, whether it's history or mystery, biology or philosophy, domestic affairs or the locks of your hair. The mystic vibration is sure to bring something new and interesting to the table every evening. So never miss another episode again. Subscribe to the Shock of the Hour now. And don't forget your Kiswahili word of the day and your daily scientific fact. So, to subscribe, give us an email, priestisaac27@gmail.com, or call or WhatsApp us today. Area code 1268-728-3162. The Shock of the Hour. Never miss another program. And a special note to all our new subscribers. All our new subscribers will receive a special copy of the DVD documentary, full length, The Night of the Black Tiger, The Divinity of Marcus Messiah God.
In 1978, a letter arrives in Israel. It sparks a modern exodus.
And one of them somehow managed to send a letter to Israel saying, "We are here in Sudan, we are stranded, we need your help, help us."
The plea comes from an unlikely source. Fleeing famine, civil war, and religious persecution in their homeland, a desperate cry for help reveals a lost community of Jews in Ethiopia.
We walked for more than 3 weeks in order to get to Sudan.
The Ethiopian Jews claim to be one of the original 12 tribes of Israel, lost for 2,000 years in Africa.
When the Israelis decided that the Ethiopians were indeed Jews, one of the 12 lost tribes of Israel, they realized that they're going to have to smuggle 20,000 people out of East Africa, a region almost universally hostile to Israel. It was an almost impossible task.
Blessed love, I am the Honorable Prince Almasi, your host for tonight's Shock of the Hour. And tonight's Shock of the Hour is Ethiopian Jews. This is tonight's Shock of the Hour. And as you know, Princess Acacia Manin is going to bring forward the Swahili word of the day for you right now. Blessed love, Princess Acacia Manin.
Blessed love and good day to everyone. Today's Kiswahili word of the day is simama, which means stop. But have you ever seen a stop sign that marks on stop? Well, I have. Stop in Kiswahili is simama. Do not forget that now. I am going to use it in the 3 sentences. It is not going to be long. Simama binamu wangu. Stop my cousin. Simama shangazi yangu. Stop my auntie. Simama dereva wangu. Stop my driver. You can also say simama dereva, which means stop driver. Well, that's all for the Kiswahili word of the day. Kwaheri, tutonane tena.
Well, thank you for the Kiswahili word of the day, Princess Acacia Manin. Asante sana.
Karibu.
Now, Honorable Priest Isaac, please say what you're saying.
Yes, my Lord, Master of Ceremonies, for today, give thanks to the Honorable Prince Alamase for the introduction, and glorified Honorable Princess Acacia Menin for the Kiswahili word of the day. see mama. And of course, we don't intend to see mama at all when it comes to this key Swahili word, because we will never stop. We will continue to go, as long as people are speaking. Yeah, give thanks. Yes, my Lord, as you said to the audience, we will be speaking about the Ethiopian Jews this evening. And I'll be speaking about this whole situation with the Ethiopian Jews in the whole light of our new book, The True Biblical Land of Israel. As most know, we have just completed The True Biblical Land of Israel, and this is a book which was previously a theological paper, which really, the theory of the paper is that the land of Israel is Africa plus Arabia. Now, most ones, definitely all of my subscribers have received, pardon me, a copy of the book, and but I can't say who all read it, but I know they've received a copy and more than likely read it or read it not. As I said, the theory is very clear that the land of Africa plus Arabia is the biblical land of Israel, the land that the Bible talks about. And I know many people rise up and say, oh, well, Israel, and we don't believe in Israel, and it's not about belief. It's the Bible expressing itself, says that there's a land that should be given to these people that are called the Israelites. Interestingly, not the Israelis, but the Israelites. And the description given is Africa plus Arabia. Whether it's something they're trying to whatever they're doing, that is the description given in the Bible. Now, in our whole reasoning on the true biblical land of Israel, we also come into the whole aspect of the true Israelites, which we have said are the people that are considered to be the melanated people of the earth, with the woolly hair, being people of African origin. Yes, people argue that everybody is from Africa because everybody came out of the original African and all of these things. And that's not the level that we're speaking of. It's obvious everyone came out of the original man. But even within the Bible, there are different nations that spring out. The Perizzites and the Jebusites and all the sites in them. But the point is, those are the modern day different nations that you have today, whether it's the Moabites or whoever, whether it be Japanese, Chinese, whatever the case is. But the true Israelites, this is what I'm saying, is the original man and woman, the same being that was compared to the original Ethiopians who were before them, obviously, because Israel, he is the son of Isaac, and Isaac is the son of Abraham. Isaac and Abraham were not Israelites. There were no Israelites in the time of Isaac and Abraham. And who's Abraham's father? Not Ur is the place. Abraham's father is I think it's Nahor, and his father, and you could go far, as far back as you can go. Noah, the same Ham, Shem, and Japheth. If you were to take the story as literal as it's put down, all these people had to be of the original stock. None of them were Israelites for sure, but they were Ethiopian. You understand? So we got to follow all of this on this level. Now, why I'm highlighting Ethiopia here and the book and everything, because as the Honorable Prince said, we will be speaking about the Ethiopian Jews tonight. But not, of course, that's a very broad subject. But the aspect of the Ethiopian Jews that I want to speak about is in relation to the geopolitical move that took place, known as Operation Moses and Operation Solomon. One took place in the 70s and I think one in the 90s. Operation Moses and Operation Solomon. For those who do not know what these operations are all about, this was the airlifting of the people known as the Falashas from Ethiopia into modern day political Israel, Palestine really, in these time frames, the 70s and the 90s. Now, the Falashas, who refer to themselves not as Falashas, but as Bete Selassie, Bete Israel, which is the house of Israel. Beta Israel. Beta Israel is the house of Israel. So they consider themselves, of the house of Israel. Now, we're going to present a BBC documentary. That's one of the things we're going to present. A BBC documentary directly dealing with what took place in the time of the operations and exactly how it became manifest. And we're also going to be listening to an interview, if time permits. I don't know how much of the interview we're going to get in, speaking with listen to this, a former Israeli. how you become a former Israeli? But anyway, he's a former Israeli. He ain't no Israeli no more, because he's going against the Zionist plot, as he called it. But we will hear from him as well. And I'm just saying that when you follow the geopolitics, you would hear in the BBC documentary one of the individuals that were a part, of the airlift from Ethiopia. Well, it's really from Sudan, because they crossed the border into Sudan, and then it took place from there. He's saying that when the Jewish people, the people in Palestine now, decided, hear this, when the Jewish people decided that the Ethiopians were Jews as well, then they decided to go and help them. Because what was taking place? There was this, well, for sure, the 70s, first of all, from 1974, 75, 76, it was top civil war in Ethiopia. So a lot of people were fleeing from the war. I mean, it's just reality. You don't have to try to pretend and go around it. I mean, there was war in Ethiopia, civil war. There was the supposed coup in 74. And remember, there was another coup in 77. A lot of people not really studying the history. People talk about Mengistu do this to the king, and Mengistu really came to power in 77, But I'm just showing you that the fighting was so harsh, and then there was a heavy drought and famine and all of that taking place. So a lot of ones were running from Ethiopia. To be honest, in the very same way you see people trying to dash from Africa today, and drowning in the Mediterranean Sea by the hundreds, by the thousands, but at least by the hundreds at any one given time. So I'm just saying now, so they ran over the border and they went into Sudan, and the Israeli people took them from there if I'm not mistaken, again, the 70s, and then somewhere in the 90s, I think there was some airlifting as well. But whatever the case is, we're going to get the stats correct here with this documentary. It's a short documentary, and it's even going to become shorter because I don't think we're going to present all of it. You hear about Moses and Solomon, the different operations, and exactly how they took place. Obviously, I'm going to comment on it, and I could start to comment now. You understand? They decided that the Ethiopians were Jews. Not the Ethiopians now, This is another thing. According to the theory of the world, it's not that the Ethiopians are Jews, but there are a certain set of Ethiopians that are Jews. And they were of the batch that left Israel during the time when Menelik I went to Jerusalem. And not Menelik I, when Sheba, Queen of Sheba, went to Jerusalem, and Menelik II was born. And yes, he went to Jerusalem and met his father. Yes, in reality.
I think Menelik I.
Menelik I. Oh, please, give thanks very much. Menelik I, yes, went and met his father, and he came back to Ethiopia with the Ark of the Covenant. This is Kebun-Agas now. And he came with the firstborn of the noble of the house of Solomon and of Israel. And this is how Israel found itself in Ethiopia. Yeah. All right, so let's follow this here now. And so these Jewish people in Ethiopia now, the Falashas, the Beta Selassie, they they understood that their origin, their homeland was not Ethiopia. Imagine that. But it was in Palestine. So the Israelis came from Palestine and took the Ethiopians up, some of them, and carried them back to Israel. Okay. Let's just follow along with this.
Israel assembles a team to work undercover, outwit dictators, and overcome a civil war to rescue the lost tribe.
I was on my way in a helicopter when the pilot told me that he had a message from Jerusalem saying that he should do a U-turn and go straight to Jerusalem. The Prime Minister wants to see you.
This is the story of how a British businessman, a Mossad spy, and a seasoned diplomat risked everything to save the forgotten Jews.
Oh, let's follow this good, eh? This is the BBC documentary.
For 2,000 years, Jews had lived in Ethiopia.
In the mid-70s, there was a revolution in Ethiopia and civil war, and the Jews, many of them fled to Sudan.
Having escaped civil war in their homeland, the Jews are stuck in appalling refugee camps. In Sudan, their religion makes life even harder.
You couldn't say that you are a Jew, otherwise they would get, afraid of you. My sister, they burned her clothes that were hung on the rope.
News of their desperate plight reaches Israel.
Listen.
And one of them somehow managed to send a letter to Israel saying, we are here in Sudan, we are stranded, we need your help, help us.
Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin decides to act.
Begin was himself a refugee. He had fled from the Nazis in Poland during the Second World War, leaving his family, unfortunately, to suffer their fate in the Holocaust. And since then, he'd become convinced that Israel must do everything it can to help Jews when they're in trouble. So
now this man that's talking, his name is what's his name? Saul David. He's a military historian. Just giving you an idea what's going on. What's his name? Saul David or David Saul? But anyway, which way turn it, that's him.
David and Saul.
David and Saul. Yeah, means like they buy them names then.
So when this letter turns up, he knows he must do everything he can to save the Ethiopian Jews.
Begin turns to his secret service, the Mossad.
The Prime Minister, he called the chief of the Mossad, and they told him, we have this news about Jews in Sudan. Bring me the Jews of Ethiopia out of Sudan. Now, how do you take them out? Because Sudan is an Arab country, enemy, member of the Arab League.
With official relations between Israel and Sudan blocked, Mossad need a way to work covertly. They approach a then little-known Manchester businessman.
Spy.
He receives a phone call he never expected.
When I received the telephone call...
Hold on, this is the so-called Manchester businessman, but he was really born in Iran.
Secretary was given 15 minutes to them.
His name is Lord David Alliance. And it's good to keep his name in mind, do some research, look him up. Because many people, pardon me?
Goliath.
Yes, Lord David Goliath, yeah. Lord David Alliance. He is considered by many, especially the old Ethiopian Jews, as the savior of the Jewish people in Ethiopia. Now, there's a lot I have to say, I just don't want to say everything yet. I want all of this to come out properly, and then we explain what's really going on here. So this is Lord Alliance talking here. Let's hear what he's saying now. He's the millionaire that basically paid for the Ethiopians.
When I heard the story, I canceled my appointment. And we discussed. They wanted me to involve because of my trade on cotton.
David is an unlikely savior of the Ethiopian Jews. At 13, he had left school to become a market trader in his native Iran.
Savior.
5 years later, in search of his fortune, he moved to Manchester, setting up a series of successful textile companies.
All right.
The Israelis approached David Alliance because he was a successful international businessman with good contacts in the Sudan. This enabled him to set up an office in Khartoum, and it's from that office that Mossad agents were able to plan their rescue operation.
So he set up an office in Sudan, you know, and it's from that office in Sudan, the Mossad agents. Mossad is the spy group of the Ashkenazi people, you know, the Israeli people, the spy, the secret agent agency, like the MI5 of Britain and MI6 and what's the other alphabet Korea and CIA. That's the same thing as an FBI, you know, alphabet soup. And the Mossad now is of Israel. So this is espionage we're dealing with. This is a spy movie. Let's just follow, man. Let's follow and then we get into it.
In David's office to travel in and out of Sudan, Mossad discover a perfect base close to the refugee camps to carry out the evacuation. Gad Shimron is recruited to help run it.
Gad Shimron.
I went down to Sudan as a member of the operating team of the new holiday village Arus, 40 kilometers from Port Sudan. It allowed you to go around the country and to drive to Port Sudan and bring tourists and go out at night and day whenever you want, actually, with your rubber boats, because you're bringing tourists to the unique diving spots of Sudan.
Gad and his team create a plan. They will pick up Jewish refugees at confidential meeting points, rendezvous with the Israeli Navy offshore, and then escort the Jews to Israel.
We had what we call the committee members. Committee members were young Jewish boys in the camps who were our contact liaison people.
Listen to this, people.
In case we said, tomorrow, 20 hours or 8 p.m., 200 people at the quarry 10 kilometers south of the refugee camp. And we would come with our trucks, pick them up, drive through the police control and then army control. Usually we have done it smoothly by bribing our way through.
In the 1980s, relations between Israel and Sudan were tense. The Sudanese have strong ties with their Arab neighbors. Rumors of Jewish refugees leaving for Israel alert the Sudanese to a potential Mossad plot.
So basically in the 1980s, the Sudanese who are, although there's a lot of black people, black like paint in a man, even at that time, but the Arabs were really basically in control. You know, they were the first enslavers of I&I, the Arab people. And so you don't know, they fighting for the Palestinian cause. So they're not too happy to hear Menachem Begin and his people them coming into Sudan, taking up nobody to go nowhere. So the whole thing was to stop that, and they did.
They shut the borders to Ethiopian Jews.
I hear you.
The rescue now hinges on whether the Israelis can find a way to reopen the border.
What they needed was a trusted middleman with good business contacts and enough political clout to influence senior Sudanese officials. There was only really one candidate.
At that point, I was asking Jane
That's Alliance
to go in and help.
Millionaire man.
Which I did.
Again, David needs to keep his real motives hidden for the ministers to meet him. Once more, he uses his Sudan office and arrives under the pretense of a trade mission.
It was in 1984 when I went to Sudan, and the aim was to buy cotton, and at the same time, through that, to try and help to bring the Jews out.
The ministers he meets are unwilling to open the border or allow any Israeli activity, until David comes across an official who studied in his adopted city of Manchester.
He gave a cocktail party that time, and another gathering the next day, and I met some people who were able to help me to open the door again for the Ethiopian to move, which was very satisfying.
David is introduced to several influential ministers. They are persuaded by his requests and reopen the borders. News spreads in Ethiopia that the escape route to Israel is open again. Increasing numbers begin to make the hazardous journey.
We left the village at night because we were escaping from the authorities in Ethiopia. It's about 800 kilometers. We walked for more than 3 weeks in order to get to Sudan.
There are many dangers on the road.
There were robbers stopping us and asking for money. Otherwise they will kill us, and we were in the middle of nowhere.
In Sudan, they are put in temporary camps, rife with disease.
We realized that we're going to stay in that desert, live in tents for many months, maybe years.
14,000 Jews leave their homes in Ethiopia. Many do not complete the journey, and thousands succumb to epidemics in the camps. Around 6,000 people die or disappear.
Listen.
They say that there is no family that got in Sudan and didn't lose one of her members.
Of course.
To get the Jews out of Sudan, Gad and his Mossad team need a new plan that bypasses the heavily armed Sudanese coast.
So why not to land Israeli Air Force C-130 transport airplanes in the desert and bring in the Jews and fly them directly to Israel?
Okay.
Sounds crazy. We tried it. It worked once and twice.
At this stage, the Jews were being smuggled out in relatively small numbers every couple of weeks on military C-130 transport planes. It was a tried and tested method being used a few years earlier to rescue Israeli hostages from Entebbe in Uganda. But when word spread around the world that a terrible natural disaster had hit the region, they realized they're going to have to speed things up. They're going to need bigger planes.
In a year, 1 million people die from one of the worst famines to blight Africa.
It was now a race against time to save the Jews before they died of hunger. And to do this, Israel asked the United States to intervene. After secret talks with the president, Nimeri, a deal was done. He will turn a blind eye as long as the operation is kept secret, not only from his Arab allies, but also for his own people. It's this that allowed the Israelis to begin to plan a mass airlift.
6,000 refugees are stranded in the camps and need to be airlifted to safety. Considered a modern exodus, this mission is named Operation Moses. The US, Israel, and Sudan put the final details together. The operation takes place in a total blackout. Sudan's allies cannot know it's assisting Israel. A Belgian aviation company fly via Europe.
The Jews were taken from the refugee camps in military convoys, actually. Because, I mean, the Sudan soldiers didn't know. They thought those are refugees being evacuated to Europe. Were taken to Khartoum International Airport, flown to Europe, and from Europe straight to Israel. Sometimes, the airplane would only touch and go in Athens, change call number and continue to Israel. In a short period of 7 weeks.
In the interest of time as well, let me just say something here, because I do want to present something other than that. And let me just say that this is a documentary you can see on the internet. You could go to the BBC website, BBC News, Saving the Forgotten Jews. That's BBC News, Saving the Forgotten Jews. And you could find it on the YouTube as well. So you could, go into depths for yourself. As I said, there's another clip I want to present. The clarity is not as loud as this one, but it's something that I would like you to at least get a bit of before we even go into any depths of reasoning. But just for a clarity on what we just listened to a moment ago. So what you heard, so Operation Moses, so pardon me, in the 80s, the Operation Moses, but yes, in the 70s, they already began movements of Ethiopians from Sudan to Israel on boats and different things, modern day Israel. I don't know what operation they call that one. But then in the 80s, you have the Operation Moses, and a bit after that, the Operation Solomon. I think the Solomon operation was the grandest of all, where they had about 28 of those big jets in the sky at any one time, carrying Ethiopians to and forth, you know, thousands upon thousands of Ethiopians being taken out of Sudan to Israel. Now, so let us be clear with what's happening here. You have a civil war in Ethiopia. This is very important because it's easy to look at this from different angles, you know, you could see the Ethiopians in Sudan, you know, suffering. You see all the ribs showing, flies all over their face, in some makeshift camps, you know, hundreds of thousands, no, millions of these people there running for their lives. You know, some of them not even really related to the ethnic so-called Jews, you know, but they just see there's a way out, so they're going to join the bandwagon too and hope that Israel will come and rescue them. So when we see Israel coming and taking these people up, especially whether we believe it or not, we may not have to be Orthodox Christian, Jews, or even religious, but the fact that these people are considered, according to some level of history, at least legend, they're considered Jews as well, just like the Jews from Europe that came into Palestine and are at war with Palestine. Since they're all Jews, it is very heartening, you know, to see how kind the Israeli people were to, you know, risk their life as well to save these Ethiopians who really had no help. They were in the desert and they were starving and they needed help. So these kind-hearted people, we must be thankful for them, for saving the Ethiopians. Saving them from what? Famine, and they were running from war. Or is that so? So who started the war? Mengistu overthrew the monarchy. Mengistu. At the foundation of all of these wars, whatever war you see happening anywhere, you know, all when they say Osama and them fellas run into the buildings with plane and all of them kind of things there. At the foundation of all of these wars, as far back as you can carry your mind in this modern political time, the Zionists, straight up, has been at the foundation thereof. So you have to think about that before you get too soft and say, oh, it's so nice that these Zionists, because the same Israeli people, them is the Zionists, you know. Oh, it's so nice how the Zionists came and saved the Ethiopians from the famine and the war and the civil war and all of this kind of stuff. When they needed them the most, they came and took them to Israel. Is that so? So why did they take them to Israel? What's the reason? What's the real reason for coming and taking these Ethiopian flashes? Beta Israel, the Ethiopian so-called Jews. What is the reason for the Israeli people risking their lives to come and pick up these Ethiopians, thousands upon thousands of them, and carry them to Israel? I will tell you why. Let's just listen to the Sun Will Rise program here from Press TV UK. Ethiopian Jews faces racism in Israel. Okay.
Hello and welcome to Summer Rise. I'm Roshan Mohammed Salih. Israel champions itself as the only democracy in the Middle East and claims to treat all of its citizens equally and fairly. Of course, Palestinians have long disputed that claim, and as recent news reports illustrate, even fellow Jews from Ethiopia are now protesting against the regime's brutality and racism. 135,000 Ethiopian Jews live in Israel, and they've long complained about unfair treatment and police violence. They've also
135,000 Ethiopian Jews live in Israel, and they've often complained about police brutality and violence.
Been some disturbing reports of Israeli attempts to sterilize Ethiopian women to decrease.
That's another thing. The Ethiopian sisters in Jewish land are being sterilized, meaning that when they go to the hospital or in other ways and fashions that they can get it done, they literally prevent the woman from having children. So a lot of the Ethiopian sisters in Israel cannot have children because there's a plan in progress to sterilize them in whatever form or fashion. You understand that?
Yes.
I mean, you have sisters, and every woman would love to have a child at some time, at least most sisters would love to have a child at some time. So when you deprive a woman of that through wickedness, destroying the womb, that's what's going on today. That's why all of these funny foods, you can't eat them foods because they're designed to sterilize a lot of women. That's why some of the sisters around here cannot even get, cannot even have children. Has a lot, some of the sisters, because of the food. And there are other reasons, but the food has a serious part to play. At least it has been designed, a lot of the food, even the vegan foods, has been designed to literally rupture the womb from within, and disrupt the proper production, the healthy production of eggs and so many different things. So this is an active practice taking place in Ethiopia, among the Ethiopians in Israel, not by the Ethiopians, but by their Israeli brothers, their Jewish brothers and sisters.
Increased their numbers, and over 40% of Ethiopian men serving in the Israeli army have been sent to military prisons during their service.
Imagine that. So, and the Ethiopian soldiers that are fighting in the army of Israel, 40% of them have been sent to prison during their service.
Today's show will be shedding the spotlight on Israel's internal racism towards fellow Jews, as well as other minorities seen as outsiders by mostly European Zionist elites. But first, here's a report on Israeli racism by Mona Kandil in the West Bank.
Listen.
Ethiopian Jews in Israel held several rallies against Israeli police brutality and racism last month. The Ethiopian Jewish community has been outraged after a video emerged showing Israeli police officers assaulting and brutally beating an Israeli soldier of Ethiopian origin. The Jewish Ethiopians, who are a minority in Israel, are not the only community being discriminated. Palestinians who are still living in the lands occupied in 1948 and make up 20% of Israel's population are effectively second-class citizens and continue to suffer under Israel's discriminatory policies.
We have warned in the past that Israel's discriminatory policy against us, the Arabs, will be adopted against minorities in Israel like the Jews of Ethiopian origin. There's an official Israeli policy of racism against the Arabs living in the areas occupied in 1948. This policy is not new. It started with the Nakba catastrophe. Discrimination is seen in all aspects of life.
Observers say that racism and violence have been at the core of Tel Aviv's policies and culture, which are based on larger colonial and settler projects. The Palestinians have long complained of racism, which is already a reality on the street, in both law and at the heart of the political system, where they are denied their basic rights.
It's a racist community in Israel, not only on the official level, but in the street. Demonstrations will always go on against the Israeli discriminatory measures. However, I don't expect major change in the policies of the current Israeli regime, because unfortunately, this one is the most extremist in the history of Israel.
The Israeli measures against the Palestinians aim at forcing us to leave our land. It's apartheid in all aspects of life. The Israeli regime continues to approve illegal discriminatory laws that are only applied to the Palestinians.
In addition, millions of Palestinians in the occupied West Bank face systematic aggression, including home demolitions under the pretext of a lack of building licenses. Palestinians are arrested on a daily basis and imprisoned without charge or trial. They are denied the freedom of movement as well as freedom of speech, and any of them could be murdered by Israeli soldiers for taking part in popular protests.
Without serious opposition and pressure from the so-called international community, Tel Aviv will continue its discriminatory policies towards Arab and African communities, especially while Israel sees itself as an entity above the law, protected by its ally in Washington. For the Sunwar Rise, this is Muna Qandil, occupied Ramallah.
To discuss Israeli racism, we have two guests in the studio with us today. Gilad Atzmon is an ex-Israeli who's now a fierce critic of the Zionist state. He's also a famous British jazz artist and author who writes on political matters, social issues, and Jewish identity and culture.
Yeah, one of the guests is an ex-Israeli. Let's just hear what he says
Frank
first.
Kelly is an Anglican priest and cultural critic and commentator. He was formerly a journalist in Italy and England. Thank you very much for coming in today, both of you guys. Gilad, if I can start with you. So help us to understand this. Why is Israeli society so racist towards a fellow Jewish group?
It is quite simple. Israel is a multi-layered society. It's a very hierarchical society, and it is the level of whiteness that would determine your status within society. At the very top, we find the East European Jews, the Ashkenazi Jews, not even the Western European Jews. We are really talking about East European. And then we find the what they call pure Sephardi's, which are Arab Jews. They are basically Arab Jews who lived in Palestine before Zionism. They come next, and then we see the Iraqi Jews, the Moroccan Jews, different level of different type of Arab Jews. The Palestinians, as we learned in the report, are second-class citizens. In fact, they are not second-class citizens. There are 8 or 9. There are many groups of Jews who are coming ahead of them, ahead of the Palestinians, and they come as
so you're saying that the Ethiopian Jews are classed even below the Palestinians?
And this is a very big question. Where are who is and then at the very bottom, you have all those new immigrants, the Israeli call them infiltrators, people illegal immigration from Africa and so on and so on. So it's a very...
Okay, now, so, everyone all right here? So I think by now the audience has a good idea. If you don't know the history, I think you're getting it, and I think you're at least working with us for some moment here. So as we hear the ex-Israeli saying, there are different layers of class. It's like a caste system there in Palestine, in Israel. In Palestine, where the Palestinians are basically at the bottom. The Palestinians share the bottom with the African people, not the Jews from Africa now, but the other Africans that are running from different parts of Africa, trying to get into some place better as they would see it. But they're at the way bottom with the Palestinians, sort of. And the Ethiopian Jews are not too far from the bottom. In fact, some of them may be on the bottom. It was very clear outside of the sterilization, as I said. A lot of them face brutality and police brutality, just like in the Western world, and they serve in the army and everything. So why is it now? So what they're doing there? Why is it that, Mossad and these ones again took the time, basically on 3 different occasions, Operation Moses, Solomon, and the first time? Why is it that they took such a risk to kidnap thousands of Ethiopians? Kidnap? Yeah, man, trust me. Kidnap thousands of Ethiopians out of Sudan to carry them to Israel. Why you say kidnap, priest? These Ethiopians willingly went. You yourself heard the sister said she was 8 years old when she went to Israel. She went to Israel without shoes. You remember her? I think that's Fanta. No, that's not Fanta. That's one of the other sisters. And she said as a child, she always heard, now listen to this. This is where religion comes in heavy. As a child, she always heard that Jerusalem was a holy place. And once you reach to the Jerusalem place, you'll be okay. No, you don't have to work. You'll be in heaven, basically. All right. Now, obviously, even though Ethiopia, Africa itself is the promised land, it's the real Zion. But as you could see, they themselves wanted to move from there because of the torment that was upon them there at the time. Now we have generations after, we have grandchildren of those that came on Operation Moses and Solomon, and now they themselves would like to get out of Israel because it's too hard for them there. They are not just second-class citizens, like 9th or 10th class citizens, according to what the ex-Israeli is saying. So we don't understand this. So what is this all about? First of all, it's a fraud. The Ethiopians, yes, they are the true Israelites. The people that came to take them out to carry them to Palestine, them ain't no Israelites. The Israelis are not no Israelites. The Ethiopian Jews, as they call them, they are the true Israelites. And the other Ethiopians that are not Jews, as they say, they are the true Israelites as well. And even all them Africans that they have down at the bottom of the pile that they don't see as Jews whatsoever, them is the true Israelites as well. And Africa plus Arabia is the true land of Israel. So what was happening there? When was Israel formed? The political one. 1948. 1948. Refugees coming from the Holocaust. Refugees coming from the torment that they faced with Hitler. Refugees, man. Ashkenazi Jews, people from Poland and parts of Russia and all sorts of places coming into the Middle East, as they call it, coming into Palestine and raging war with the people that they find there, the Palestinians. And now they put the Palestinians in where do the Palestinians really live? I think it's in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, or some little strip the Palestinians have, and they now occupy the whole Palestine and talk about they turn it into Israel. You see what I'm saying? 1948. Now, remember, they cannot get along with the Palestinians, you know. They cannot get along with the Palestinians. Follow me good enough. I'm trying to make a key point to all the people listening. What you see going on in South Africa? People taking back their land. Zimbabwe, people still attempting in Zimbabwe to take back their land, but right now in South Africa, it's a different thing altogether. Everywhere you go in the world, as Brother Khalid Muhammad used to tell us, wherever you find the white and black dynamic, wherever the white and black dynamic exists, you always find the white on top and the black at the bottom. King Emmanuel teaches black over white, you know. We're not dressing up like no hotel worker. Anywhere you go in the world where there are black people and white people, it could be 2 white people and 80,000 black people, you better believe that the white on top and the black at the bottom. That's just facts. It could be in Africa, it could be in New York, in England, in Palestine, so-called Israel, in Spain, in Germany. Anywhere you see black people, look some black people there, okay. Look some white people there, okay. You better know for sure that the whites are on the top. Now, I'm not saying they don't have poor whites and all that. I know people are very, ready to jump in. And it doesn't mean that they have, let's just say, millionaires and billionaires, black billionaires and millionaires. Okay, obviously, okay, Oprah Winfrey then. Let's just pick a name from the hat that people like to call. Oprah Winfrey, who's another popular person that you hear the name ring all the time. The Bill Cosbys, give me somebody else. The Jay-Z's, who else they have? The P. Diddy's, who else? The Barack Obamas. The Barack Obama. So these 5, the Michael Jordans, you call them. You cannot find enough of them, even though they may be more wealthier, or more wealthy, pardon me, sorry for the grammar. They have more wealth than a lot of white people. But a lot more white people have more wealth than them. You understand? And a lot more black people don't got the level of wealth that the white people in general have, wherever you find them mixed together. Nobody on the earth can run from that. So yes, a black man and a black woman may seem to, have it. They have a few yachts and a few jets. But in general, the black people in general is living from paycheck to paycheck. The black people in general, internationally, are trying to make 2 ends meet. The black people in general, internationally, even in their own motherland, still up to now, living by the millions in ghettos, shantytowns, slums, and makeshift UN camps. And although other nations may go through that, if we pool everything together and judge it by nationhood, the white is still on top and the black is still on the bottom. Alright, so you can't just look at one and Magic Johnson and LeBron James and feel you can judge the rest of us by them. That's not how it goes. Not because they have some white people living under the bridge too, and standing by the what you call it, the drum with the fire and to heat up themselves. That may be true, but that doesn't change the collective dynamics of the world. That is what I'm saying. So you must be able to look at things individually. You can look at an individual and judge their state. But when you judge the nation now, white on top, black at the bottom, all over the world. All over the world. So in South Africa now, the whites in South Africa, these people are not wiping their own windows. They don't paint their own houses. They don't wash their own cars. So how do they get it done? The people that they met in South Africa works for them. So the white people in South Africa that have all this land and farming the land, they may come and pick a corner or two. But it is the black people from the villages nearby that work for them. I mean, it's the same thing here. The white Syrians that come around here and the few Caucasians that come around here, the Caucasians is not them working for each other. They hire black people and pay them minimum wage. So even in Africa it's done. Just watch the technique. So when the Caucasians came over here and they brutalized the Indians, although a few Indians are left, just a few, because they taught us that the Caribs ate the Arawaks, and nobody ever told us who ate the Caribs. You know, all of them just disappeared. They have a few Caribs, but you can't compare that to the amount of Caribs that were there before. So who is it that ate them? Nobody can tell us that. The point is that the Caribs and the Arawaks and the Tainos and all these other people here, they could not keep up the workload that the Europeans needed for their Europe to flourish. So what did they do? What did the Europeans do? Slavery was almost like an afterthought, you know, it may sound a weird how. When they came over here, their primary mission was to create a new empire. And they massacred the Indians like they massacre anybody they come across. And they nearly wiped out many of the tribes. They wiped out some of the Indian tribes in the Caribbean and in the US or in North America, in Turtle Island. And those that remains, some of them are just few in numbers up to today. Because as Burning Spear says in his song, Chinese man come, they couldn't live it out. Coolie man come, Indian come, white man come, they couldn't live it out. What Burning Spear say? Ethiopians live it out. That means the black man and black woman were the only people on the earth that was strong enough to do the work that the Caucasians needed to be done in this new world. Tonto and them couldn't do it. So they got on some ships and came to Africa and began Operation Slave Trade. And they kidnapped, they murdered, just to drag us out of the motherland. They put us on ships. Yes, millions of us died at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. And they brought many of us over to the western side of the planet to be slaves, as they call it, to work in the cotton field and work in the cane field. And then after they softened us up, after a few generations, grandmother, great-grandmother, mother and daughter, now the daughter has a child, the child grew up in the slave master's house, she's cooking for him. She's wiping his window. She feels she has the best job in the world. Down to today, she's the bank teller. She has no thought whatsoever of Africa. And just as in slavery, all the slavery days, today, we as the black people, we are the one that uphold the system that is still crushing us. There's a system crushing us, my prince and princess. There's a system crushing us. And we are the same one that go and keep up the system. You just drive around Antigua, all them big buildings that the white people building, who you see on the buildings working? Rastaman. Enough Rastaman is, I don't mean own their own construction company, you know. Laborers. I'm not saying a fella not supposed to have a job and do what he got to do. I mean, I ain't feeding their family, so they got to do what they got to do. When I say I'm not, I don't mean I won't, but that's not what I'm doing at the moment. I would happily feed a next man's family if he can't do it, and as much family as I could. Happily, without a doubt. You know, in fact, that is our goal. But the point I'm making is that we the same one that burn fire upon Babylon. When Babylon come and say they need a building to build, we first to line up and say, yes sir, I have my trowel, I have my square, I am a tradesman. That's good. That's good. I'm not saying you shouldn't do what you gotta do, but I'm just showing you that unknowing to many of us, we're still keeping up the system. If you're going to build a Masonic house for the parliament and a Masonic house for the government house and all these institutions and a Masonic house for this and that, you're keeping up the same system that's crushing us as a people. You may be making a week's pay, but you're crushing us as a people. The same building you're building You know, it's the same courthouse that is going to convict many innocent black people. You know, the same building that you're building is going to be the house for some spy agency that is going to still spy on your son and daughter that are revolutionaries. So this is what I'm trying to say. Many of us don't take the time to look at reality, to understand the state that we are in as a people. Now I know it sounds like I've left the subject, but I'm right on the subject. I'm trying to make a point. Wherever the Europeans established their kingdom and nation, they must have, listen to me now man, they must have the Africans with them. Although they treat them bad, although they poison them, although they ostracize them, just as Willie Lynn said, you know, beat her with the bullwhip until you extract the last bit of bitch from her. That's exactly what Willie Lynn said. And he goes on to say, make sure not to kill her. So they know that it is within their you know, they have the right in their case to deal with us in the most savage of ways. But they cannot exterminate us. Well, they can't, and even if they could, they don't want to, because we are necessary for the upkeep of their kingdom. Without us, we built their White House. You don't see what I'm saying? Look at the wall we have here in the Institute. Look up now. You see any white people in that? 100 great black inventors. Look at all them black people that invent this and that, from elevator to gas tank to the motor car, you know, peanut butter. I mean, we can go on and on. We are the ones, we are the innovators. Whatever Benjamin Franklin invent, he stole it from us. When Christopher Columbus find the Western world, it was a black man that navigated for him. They cannot do without us, and they know that. That is why when they went into Israel, 1948, that's when Israel began. But in the 1950s, you hearing me? In the 1960s, you getting me? 50s and 60s, you know, just 20 years. People coming in from Europe to build up Israel, because they need people to come in to build it up. And they're not getting along with the people that they met there. And they need some indentured servants. They need some black people.
Hey, Ezekiel, you know that they have some niggers in Ethiopia running for their lives, you know. They say that they're Jews. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Oh yeah, Jeremiah, I'm way ahead of you. Let us pretend we love them. Let us airlift them out of Sudan and bring them here. You know we ain't going to treat them niggas like we treat ourselves. And we'll have them work for us. So isn't it that what the Ethiopians do now in Jewish land? They're working for them. They're the slaves. They're the servants. They're the ones doing all of the hard work. They ain't no CEO. They're not running no big business. Yes, you may find an Ethiopian coffee shop. Give thanks, because they're innovative people. But the main point stays that the black at the bottom and the white on top. And in the case of Israel, there's so many other people between the black and the white. You know what I mean? And the Palestinians, just because it's their place, they scrape in the bottom too. So when Menachem Begin, somebody need for Menachem down. When Menachem Begin and his people, in the kindness of their heart, decided to go to Sudan to rescue the Ethiopian refugees whose war they're running from was started by the same Zionists. Straight up. They know that. All of that is a part of the plot. So the people could run away. So they can go and scoop them up and bring them to Israel, where they had no plan whatsoever to treat them as equal citizens. But they needed some Negroes there to wipe their window. They needed somebody to pump the gas. They needed somebody to clean the sewage, because they for sure ain't going to do it. And the Palestinians, at least the vast majority of them, ain't working with them, for sure. So they needed to get some Africans. That was just the same thing. So, like slavery, they came for us in ships. In Operation Moses and Solomon, they came for us in planes. They didn't have to whip us, chain us, or even run us down. Because of religious philosophy, and we were running for our lives, we were happy to run on these big jumbo jets to go to Israel, where we're having such a hard time today, where they're killing our fetuses, where they're aborting our babies just as much as they're aborting our babies over here. That is how they're dealing with us. We're still living in shanty towns up to now. We're fighting in their military, yet still we're the most in their prisons. It reminds me of not the Civil War, the Vietnamese War, where we went as black people, not just from the US, contingents had to leave from other places of black people, because you had to support the US. And when we returned from the Vietnamese War, we're still second-class citizens, and the people that never went to the war. That's how the black Falashas, Better Israel, Ethiopian Jews are treated right now as I'm speaking to you in the land of Israeli. Second class, ninth class, 10th class citizens, when they're supposed to be the Jewish brothers of the Ashkenazis. That's why they came for us. They didn't have to, when they went into South Africa, they didn't have to go for nobody. Blacks were there already. But when they came over here to the Western world, and the Indians could not help them to keep up what they wanted kept up, they had to come to Africa to get manpower. But at that time, no religious philosophy was confusing us. So they had to beat us, fight us, rape us, shoot us, all kind of things, drag us on ship. Even on the ship, they had to Kunta Kente and Tobias and do us all kind of things to weaken us and soften us, and it worked. It worked, because now we are their indentured servants. If we're not slaves, we're definitely indentured servants for the empire of the Caucasian world. From Donald Trump to Queen Elizabeth, whoever runs it, that's the whole oligarchy thereof. We, the black people of the world, down to our resources, our diamonds, our gold, our bauxite, all of our minerals serve that enterprise, that empire, and we're still not even recompensed properly for all our minerals, our resources that we have literally have stolen from us, basically, to fuel the rest of society. So nobody in the world can make me believe that Menachem Begin and what's his name, Alliance and Saul David and Gad Shimran, and none of them had any love for us. None of them. Because if they did, in that documentary that they did with BBC, they would have clearly said, but I must admit, the Ethiopian Jews that we brought, they're not living good at all. None of them say that. They even go as far as to say it was a wonderful thing and they're so happy that they could have been a part of that. And what are you talking about? They needed servants and they came for the servants. That's all. Don't try to play us. Rastafari. Do give thanks.
If you know your Bible and you do not know your history, the knowledge of your Bible will become a mystery. John, Marcus, Selassie, Jah, Rastafari, blessed love.
Subscribe to the Mystic Vibrations Shock of the Hour program today and never miss another episode. The Shock of the Hour is a Radio Anu exclusive program produced every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. By now, I am sure that you are aware that all our programs are packed with information, inspiration, mystic vibrations, as well as hot button topics. Every evening we enter into a different dimension, even if it is a part 2 of the previous program, whether it's history or mystery, biology or philosophy, domestic affairs or the locks of your hair. The mystic vibration is sure to bring something new and interesting to the table every evening. So never miss another episode again. Subscribe to the Shock of the Hour now. And don't forget your key Swahili word of the day and your daily scientific fact. So, to subscribe, give us an email, priestisaac27@gmail.com, or call or WhatsApp us today. Area code 1268-728-3162. The Shock of the Hour. Never miss another program. And a special note to all our new subscribers. All our new subscribers will receive a special copy of the DVD documentary, full length, The Night of the Black Tiger, The Divinity of Marcus Messiah.